Welcome back to our program here on the Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Wu Ruiguo. We will continue our conversation with the three recipients of the U.S. Presidential Scholars and talk about the competition itself. Tiffany, can you share with us that you won the award back in 2009, just last year? And how did you, know about the competition? And when did you need to apply? And when were you notified?
The Presidential Scholars Program is a government program.
Yes.
And it honors and graduating high school seniors for their achievements. So what you do to apply is they set a cutoff score for SAT and ACT tests.
Good.
And those that make that cutoff are invited to apply. So you write a series of essays and write about what you've done in high school, your achievements, your volunteer work. And from that lot, the government picks a certain number of semi-finalists.
Okay.
And then once again, you take another turn, and then they choose a finalist, which is a boy and a girl from each state. And then there's also a few extra finalists who are honored for their work in the arts rather than academically.
Okay, so this is actually a very competitive, a very long process. After you were notified that you were invited to Washington, D.C., and for you, in the year of 2009, you met the Vice President, Mr. Joe Biden. And can you share with us that 3-day or the weekend experience in Washington?
I think it was about a 5-day trip to Washington, D.C.
Good.
And what they did was they took us around to a lot of government stations so we could see the workings in D.C.
Okay.
We also had time to ourselves to visit the Smithsonian and get to know our fellow scholars.
And Connie, you were also a recipient back in 2009. How was your experience in Washington? Did you guys know each other?
Yeah.
You did? Okay, good. And did you, find Washington to be pretty much what you expected it? Was that your first trip there?
Yeah, so actually, no, well, I went to Washington, D.C. When I was small, but I didn't remember much. But so it was my first time to a lot of the different museums, or though we didn't get that much time to visit them, but like my first time around the area that I remember. And it was nice that we got to go to the White House and visit inside and meet the Vice President.
Good. And Chris, you got the award a little earlier, back in 2006. And can you share with your 5-day experience in Washington, D.C.? And apparently you met the president at the time, Mr. George W. Bush.
That's right. I'm older than these two lovely ladies on my sides.
Not by much.
It was a wonderful experience.
Yes.
President Bush was very gracious, and it was quite an honor to meet him.
Okay.
I think when he just walked into the room, you could feel the presidential presence, and everyone just snapped to attention.
Okay.
The trip itself was great. It was somewhat similar to this camp in Taiwan, except obviously shortened.
Of course.
And we had the opportunity to see D.C. and understand a little bit better the inner workings of our government, as well as to spend time with, as Tiffany said, our fellow scholars.
Okay. That was also an experience just, for, Tiffany and Connie just last year, and for Chris was 4 years ago. But the experience itself certainly was an opportunity for you to establish network with other recipients of the Presidential Scholar Award. Does that network still in place for the three of you? Do you still keep in touch with other fellows, other recipients? They're all going to college or graduate school now, or maybe even working now. Does that network still in place, and do you find it to be helpful?
Absolutely. Many of the presidential scholars went to Harvard, and so I went to. There were many. They became my classmates after the weekend.
Good.
And so that's been a great network. And in addition to that, the program will hold reunions in various cities.
Okay.
And that's when you have the opportunity to meet older presidential scholars and stay connected.
Okay. And the three of you are, were all born in the in the U.S. But of Taiwanese descent. And the fact is that you are bicultural products. And how would you think that your, cultural heritage in Taiwan and growing up experience in the United States, how does that combination of, growing up experiences help you, in terms of, doing well in school and also in the future of excelling professionally? Connie?
Well, first of all, growing up in like two cultures is definitely a great way to see both cultures from both like an outsider point of view and insider point of view, so we get to experience both cultures, so that enriches our perspectives. And one thing that I would say about being raised in a Taiwanese American family here, is that I think Taiwanese culture, usually the family state places a high emphasis on like academics and hard work, and so I think that's helped me excel in not just academics but anything I do. Like my work ethic has definitely helped me, so it's grown from my Taiwanese roots.
Okay, and Tiffany, you share the same view?
Yes, it's very similar. I think another thing that our Taiwanese heritage contributes is that often in groups, even in diverse groups, people find themselves hanging out and making friends with people of their own ancestry because of common beliefs, common priorities. And so having that sort of network also helps in my life.
Okay, and if we may backtrack a little bit, you know, when you were born in the States and when you were growing up there, that you found out that, you know, certainly, you know, you're coming from a Taiwanese family, you know, that settled down, you're basically first generation Taiwanese Americans. And how would you think at the time, maybe, you know, you needed to go to Chinese school and then learn a different language, learn your mother tongue. Did you find that, you know, to be something that you welcomed, or it was something that you had your doubts or, you know, even resistance from getting to know the two cultures? Chris?
It was something I embraced and I certainly was proud of, but it also was, I think, sometimes contributed its own challenges.
Of course.
As you mentioned, I
went to be demanding, yes?
Absolutely. I would go to Chinese school on Saturday mornings, you know, at 7 a.m. More class, it never ends.
Yes.
And I think also just growing up as a kid anywhere, you're struggling to figure out your own identity and figuring out how to fit in. And I think trying to fit into two different cultures and understand both cultures made it that much more challenging. Okay.
Connie, you had the same experience?
Yeah, I would definitely say, like, it definitely, there are also challenges to being bicultural. So you want to feel like you're able to belong to both cultures, but I feel like sometimes I feel more American than Taiwanese. And so it's a good thing that we get to come to this camp and get to know our Taiwanese side of ourselves better.
And Tiffany, you know, pursuing what Connie just said a little further, you know, they must have, you know, comes across the times and that you feel like that, hey, I'm more an American than, you know, Taiwanese. Or there may be other times that, hey, you know, it's a great thing that I have a Taiwanese culture, you know, that I know the different ways of doing, you know, things and, you know, looking at things. How would you find internally that mechanism that you can reconcile the differences, you know, since you're growing up in two different cultures?
I think to start with, what makes it difficult is what Connie said, that sometimes when I'm in America, my parents remind me that even though I was born and raised in America, people might not see me as American. They look at me and see an Asian. And then when I come back to Taiwan, people look at me and they know I'm not Taiwanese, I must be American. And so to reconcile those two, I agree that this camp and having that Taiwanese American network back home is really helpful. I find other people in the same position as me, in the same struggle as me, and hanging out with them and talking those issues out really helps.
Okay, and let me ask the three of you. You're also going to, you know, college and graduate school in the States. Do you take time to participate maybe in the Taiwanese Student Association or Chinese Student Association, you know, as part of your extracurricular activities? Chris?
Absolutely. They're a great way to meet friends of similar descent and also to get good Taiwanese food that you can't otherwise get. I think sometimes it's the struggle you mentioned of being a product of two cultures is replicated in the college environment in the sense that you want to have Asian friends and to maintain your culture, but at the same time you don't want to only have Asian friends and you want to be integrated. So, and often Taiwanese cultural groups can be a little bit insular and people can tend to just stick together. So I think it's a little bit of a balancing act between maintaining that and also having friends outside of it. Yeah.
As we mentioned earlier, that your Cultural and Heritage Camp was organized by the Overseas Compatriots Affairs Commission, OCAC, in Taiwan. And OCAC also has many cultural offices in the States. I don't know if, you know, they have one close to your home. And I know, you know, Chris, your home is in LA. They definitely, I know, they have one in LA. And where's home to you, Tiffany?
Kansas.
Kansas. And Tiffany is back in Kentucky.
Yeah, I'm in Kentucky, and I think the closest is in Atlanta.
Okay, and where's the closest, you know, cultural office?
I think it's Chicago.
Oh, okay. But maybe start off with Chris again. Since you have OCAC Cultural Office close to home, closer than the two of them, do you often go to their activities or participate in their events?
I personally haven't had the chance to.
Okay.
My parents have.
Okay.
And the way I ended up in this camp is they actually called my parents and invited me. So I certainly have the office in Los Angeles to thank for that.
Okay. And then do the two of you take the time, maybe not necessarily going over, to a different state or to a different city, to the OCAC office, but certainly, the local Taiwanese community. Do you participate in their cultural activities or community service activities when you are back home? Connie?
I would say I'm in like the Taiwanese American societies at college. So it's nice to have like meetings and like activities to not just with food but also other things with Taiwanese culture. So it's a nice way to meet people of similar descent.
Okay. Good.
And for the for the OCAC office, I haven't gotten much of a chance to interact with them much. But I think after this camp, I think it would be great to keep up with them and see what's going on.
All right. And we're going to take the final break on today's program here on the Taiwan Outlook. And when we come back, I'm going to ask the three recipients of the Presidential Scholar Awards about their vision, about their future, and about their world that we share together. I'll see you in 3 minutes.